The Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change has indicated in the assessment report that Africa is the most vulnerable continent to the adverse effect of climate change. Basically, this is because most of our economic sectors are based on climate-sensitive sectors. It has also indicated that temperatures are really rising in Africa. And so based on that, if our economy depends on climate-sensitive sectors like agriculture, and due to the impact of climate change, erratic rainfall patterns, high temperatures, it means that we are highly vulnerable, and that if we do not take measures to be able to adapt, then we are in serious problems. So that is why it is very critical that we take the necessary measures to adapt to the impacts of climate change, which are already with us now. The convention itself, there is the mention of adaptation, but hitherto, it has not been in the forefront until in Bali in COP13, when parties realized that even though there's the issue of adaptation, nothing really has been done. And so that is why we came up with the Bali Action Plan, where there was the need to have enhanced implementation of adaptation actions. So it was in Bali that it was realized that there's the need to do more on adaptation. In everything that we have to do depends on resources. When I talk about resources, I'm talking about financial, technological, and capacity building. These are the critical issues that both all developing countries need to be able to develop adaptation plans, adaptation programs, and also implement. For the least developed countries, they were mandated to develop national adaptation program of actions, which most of them have done. But the projects and activities that came out of these plans have not been implemented due to the lack of resources, financial, technical, and capacity building. So I think the need for all this, and for countries which are not least developed countries, other developing countries, there's also the need for them to also develop either national adaptation plans or strategies, so that they can also implement those projects or activities that will emanate from these plans and programs. So basically it is resources, financial, technical, and capacity building. In Cancun, we were able to negotiate and adopt the Cancun Adaptation Framework, of which a component of the Adaptation Committee is part of it. Currently, we are negotiating on the composition and the modalities of the Adaptation Committee, which should be finalized in Durban this November, December, so that the Adaptation Committee will start work in 2012. And we are hoping that the Adaptation Committee will try and have an overview of a coherent adaptation activities within the UNFCCC. So I think that is a major milestone that we were able to achieve in Cancun. There are other components of the Cancun Adaptation Framework which we are yet to finalize. For instance, for the loss and damage, studies are now going to be undertaken, so we haven't actually gone to the actual mechanism, but we are going to have workshops to be able to understand the whole issue of loss and damage before we actually go into whether we need to have an international mechanism which will look at loss and damage. Secondly, there's also the issue of trying to have a mechanism or guidelines and modalities for developing countries to be able to develop their national plans, programs, and implement them. So these are all parts of the Cancun Adaptation Framework that we were able to achieve in Cancun in 2010.